times you let the crops rest every 7 years. They used to till the soil 18 to 24 inches. Now I want to say the requirement, and this is about 5 years ago, last time I looked this up, but it's 12 inches is all I have to do to till. So what are you getting? You're getting the same soil year after year, depleted of nutrients. You're not letting the crops rest, so you're getting even less. So the whole idea is like the food we eat isn't the food we used to eat. Okay, so that's where vitamin supplementation comes in. And then also if you're taking prescriptions, that's when you need to take more. And so the whole idea is like if you're somebody who's on any sort of blood pressure medication, what's it making you do? Pee more often. That's also getting rid of your vitamins. If you're somebody who spasms often, you're probably missing out on some sort of sodium and some sort of potassium, and what works together. So there's all sorts of different things you gotta realize that help, that it's not going to be the same for everybody. Your B vitamins help calm stress. They help carbohydrate metabolism. Vitamin C is good for your immune system, but it's also great for your tendons and ligaments to provide stretchiness and elasticity. Vitamin D is incredibly important because it does the opposite. It provides rigidity. So the whole idea is like all these different things work well together. So that's why when you get your blood work, don't just go based on what they tell you in the prescriptions they say they can give you. Also ask, hey, is there anything natural or healthy or vitamin supplementation I can do to aid in with this? Because a lot of the times they will know, but if they don't know, again, you have Google, you have YouTube, you have us. And then the other thing too is most of your nutrition stores, as long as it's not a GNC high school kid, they will have some experience, and it's not because they're book smart, it's because they're interacting with people all day long with the same medications, the same conditions, and those things. So that's where like kind of group, I guess, herd mentality, or however you want to call it, but it's like the more people that somebody encounters on a daily basis, the more in tune they're going to be with those type of things. If you have a doctor that never talks about vitamins, probably not a good person to ask. Ask another doctor, ask another person who's more in tune with that stuff. So again, the more interaction somebody gets on a daily basis, the more they're going to know about vitamins. Things are constantly changing. So if there is something where you're feeling fatigued, you wake up already feeling tired. Again, she talked about digestion. If you start drinking water and your digestion is still not good, it might be probiotics, prebiotics, or some sort of fiber that you need. But everything that's going on in your body is either functioning at proper strength or it's missing something. What we're trying to do with vitamins is it's a supplementation. It doesn't replace food, but it's in addition to. So that's one of the things to really consider with vitamins is that like you're just taking this whole bevy of vitamins and it's like a vitamin cocktail every single morning, and you're peeing neon glowing in the toilet, like you're wasting all that stuff and your body doesn't need it. Start getting a little bit more specific and a little bit more deliberate if you are taking vitamins, because the other thing you gotta consider too is you're taking tons of vitamin D, tons of calcium, and all these other things that are minerals and rocks. What happens if your body's not using them all the way? Have you ever had a kidney stone? Probably not something you want to get, right? Has anyone ever had calcium deposits? Probably not something you want to get. So base your supplementation based on your individual needs, not because Dr. Oz said it, not because you read it in the magazine, but actually go based on your blood work and consult with your doctor or somebody who's versed in nutrition with some of those things. Any questions specifically about vitamins? If I was just a person starting off, never taking any vitamins, fairly healthy person, they just want something for overall wellness, I've laid out what I would recommend. If you go and look up what the top 5 most common deficiencies are, those are the actual vitamins that are there, and then that's the actual amounts that I would personally take if that was the situation. So the one thing too, I guess I'll add one last part there. If you look at the calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, I would assume everybody here is taking that. If not, it's probably the first place you should start. That needs to be in those ratios. If it's not 2 to 1 to 1, so like 500, 250, 250, the absorbability is way less in your body. So make sure you're looking for that. There's all sorts of different forms of calcium. Again, talk to your doctor, talk to the pharmacist on what they recommend with that. But the ratio of 2 to 1 to 1 is huge with that as far as absorption and hopefully avoiding kidney stones and some of the other things down the line. Food is next. Go ahead, if you guys have any notes, circle your rating. Very cool. All right, so guys, the next thing is nutrition. So you'll see the notes I have there, like your food choices are not punishment, it's your fuel, okay? So often, like, I guess this is the thing that like we talk about as far as like the sustainability. If you're gonna do it for 30 days, you better be able to do it for 30 years or else it's not going to work. And everybody knows the example of the pendulum swings one way, it's going to swing back just as hard the opposite way. If you do something drastic, like eliminate every single carbohydrate from your day, when you eat them or sniff them or see them in 30 days, you're going to gain that weight back. So your whole goal is to find where you're going to fuel your body, not where you're going to starve or restrict your body. It's not a punishment. And so one of the things I try and tell clients is like, when you go to exercise, the way to convince yourself is like, I'm doing this because I love my body. So when you're eating good, healthy food, I'm doing this because I love my body. But the other thing is if you want a piece of cake, you're doing it because you love cake. It's okay. Like, we all recommend, have your cheat meals, enjoy yourself, have your diet, but eat your cake too, So it's one of those things, don't ever look at it as like we're trying to deprive anything, because that's the worst strategy possible. The more, again, you take away, the more your body's going to crave. So what we got to look at too is each individual person has probably been brought up on different type foods. Some of it goes back to culture. Some of it goes back to where parts of the country that we're from. Some of us are more accustomed to fried food, some eat more fruit, some eat more rice. That's all going to depend on your personal preferences. So if you're just looking at a diet, somebody hands you a diet, it's kind of bogus. Because you can't assume that everybody's going to eat the same thing. It's not going to work for everybody for the same outcomes, because like your body's going to absorb foods differently. If you've grown up your whole life eating certain types of, say, rice and beans, and your body's used to digesting that and it has all those enzymes to do it, and then you give it to me who never eats that, one person might bloat, the other person they might lose weight. So a lot of that comes back to like your heritage and upbringing. So don't always look at like something that's in the magazine or something that's online, and just because the person who wrote it looks great and has, abs or whatever, it doesn't mean you're going to get those same abs, okay? So it all comes down to like what works best for each individual body, just like with everything else that we're talking about. So like the second point says why fat diets fail, because they're not sustainable. If it was the way you wanted to eat, you would have already been eating like that, okay? So the whole idea is like we need to make small changes. And how I always put this is, if you had a tree and you had to eat right now, what are you gonna pick? The highest fruit or the lowest fruit? The lowest fruit, okay? The one that's hanging down, because that's going to be the easiest to grab. So what we want to look at on our day-to-day basis is we all probably make the same type of mistakes. We're creatures of habit, so for somebody it might be I add 2 tablespoons of sugar to my coffee every morning. For somebody else it might be after every meal I go and grab out of a little hard candy jar or something and I suck on a hard candy. Or it might be I have a chocolate bar that always stays in the fridge or stays off to the side that I snack on throughout the day. Everybody's going to have something different. Chances are whatever you just thought of is what you should change first. Oh. So, I thought he was nice. Yeah, it's okay. But if you start it tomorrow, you're not going to last on that. Okay? So that's where it comes down to making the healthiest of choices or choosing the better of 2 evils. So we have a client, and so we did this like a year ago at the Pasco County Clerk Courts. We did for their whole staff training, and we did kind of the similar presentation, like 5 different spots, and it was funny kind of hearing each different place's response to the food part. The more when we had guys in the room, they didn't want to hear about taking away alcohol or fried food. When we went to another spot, they didn't want to take away their social lunches and gatherings. So everybody's going to be different, but when we're looking at this stuff, the whole idea is you're going to find the spot that's going to work best for you, and you're going to try and find the best of 2 evils. So we had one woman, she's down 100 and something pounds from clerk's office. I can't even remember her name, of course. What she did every single day.
Yes.
Yeah, Natasha, there you go. She had an app, it's on cell phones, it's called MyFitnessPal. Her routine was to go to Dunkin' Donuts every single day. She started just choosing the better of the donuts every day.
Her first start truly to lose it was the
It's
healthiest.
over 100 pounds, I don't know how much it was, but it was a lot.
I think the last time we checked was like 130 that she lost.
Is there a healthy
But eating-
donut?
Exactly.
That's it. So where one person would be like, oh, I'm not giving up my donuts. She just went instead of the one that had maybe 500 calories, the one that had 300. So it's all about making subtle changes. I have a friend, Gus, who's been in this industry for a long time too. He had a client, same thing, this guy's over 150 pounds lost.
Oh, the coffee.
The coffee. So he would pull to the drive-thru every single morning and he'd ask for a coffee with 8 and 8. Does anybody know what that means?
No.
8 cream, 8 sugar.
No.
Oh my gosh.
True story. Again, you can't make it up.
Yeah.
So he started with, the next week, 7 and 7. And then he kept dropping down, 6 and 6, and kept going. This guy drinks black coffee now. And again, I've never met this gentleman in my life. This is another friend's client. But he's down over 150 pounds just by starting with one change. So if you remember we talked about in the beginning, the whole momentum thing, okay? So we start to sleep better, then we hydrate our body, and then we nourish our body with proper vitamins, and then we start cutting away some of the bad things. And it doesn't have to be all of them, but just one little bit at a time. okay? So if you normally eat a piece of candy 4 times a day, it either goes to a half piece 4 times a day, or we cut out the last serving before bed since we know we're not going to burn that one. That's it. And that might be all you need to do for the next 4 to 8 weeks, and we can leave here, you guys are going to be great, all right? But everybody doesn't want that. They want fancy. They want something that's going to be hard that they're going to suffer from. That's suffering enough for some people to get all the results that they need. Okay? So a lot of times we got to look at is what mistake are you making most often, and how can we just adjust that? And when you look at that, that's when lifestyle in 30 days turns into 30 years, and you're like, wow, I used to do this every single day, and now you've replaced it with some other good habit. Bless you. Oh, she heard now.
And I
So,
just wanted,
yeah, go for it.
sorry, just to add too, of like still enjoying your life. Us owning the gym for over 8 years, we've gone extreme. We've done bodybuilding shows. We've gotten to the lowest. That's not sustainable. It's not happy. It's not healthy. The pendulum swung the opposite way. We packed on some serious weight because we deprived ourselves for so long for foods. And now the pendulum is swinging back where we, instead of trying, oh my God, we got to get back on this diet. We can't believe we've gained this weight. What are our clients going to think? You know, all these things. And it started with one thing, taking away whatever I believe, you know, it was desserts every single night.
And it was pizza on Sundays.
We took away, I love pizza. We took away
pizza
desserts.
We went crazy, but
Exactly.
it was our
And
weekend habit.
and that's how it started. And slowly and overnight, it wasn't like, wow, we lost 25 pounds doing that. And especially for us ladies, it always takes us longer than men.
Oh yeah. Me and Larry lose 5 pounds before the end of the day.
Yes.
We're good.
Yes.
And we're gonna get stones thrown at us as we're going out the door.
So don't underestimate those small changes, because again, you still want to live your best life and enjoy things and have social gatherings and have cocktails when you want or eat what you want. But truly, like he said, it may be like that dessert before you go to bed, or that snack before you go to bed, or you know what, I'm going to try to drink 2 bottles of water in one day. But do not underestimate those small changes. And even if you're not seeing a change within a couple weeks, don't be frustrated. Our biggest thing is, how long did it take you to get to that point, that it's not going to be an overnight thing to get you out of that. So
Yeah, it's so the point, I guess, before we get to actually individual nutrition,
Yes.
is like everybody wants things to be incremental. So like 1 + 2 + 3 + 4, but it's not. It's exponential. It'll be 1 + 1 + 1, or 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. Because you're 4 weeks later, it's still 1. And then all of a sudden, one thing hits, and all of a sudden there's ×4, ×8, ×16. So like, we don't get to control the scale. That's the one thing we are not in control of. We're in control of our mouth, our bodies, all those things of what we do to ourselves, but we're not in control of the scale. So that's the one thing, is like, when we go so strict, we also want those results to match the effort that we put in that sacrifice. And when it hasn't, after 2, 3, 4 weeks, we're like, oh, what's the point? And not only do you go back to your old style, you go back to that old style plus something worse that you've been craving. And that's where people yo-yo. So that's why I want to teach you more about food and what food does. So what I drew here is just, this is my whiteboard, if you can see it. But this is the timeline here. So if I have time here, what is BS? Come on, let me say it. Wow, I like that. Such a clean group. I know, such a clean, I was waiting for, I was trying to identify the body. I knew I flew along with. I gotta do my people. So this is blood sugar, okay? So the whole idea.
I know where you're going.
Gosh, I love it. So the whole idea is like, when you eat something, blood sugar goes up. And so the whole idea, when blood sugar goes up, that's when we feel energized, we feel good, we're going crazy. So when it goes up, that's great. But what does our body release to help control our blood sugar from just continuing to go up and up and up? You know? Insulin, okay? So if anybody knows a diabetic, the problem is that it doesn't release the insulin, and that blood sugar just keeps going up and up and up, and that's where you run into issues. So instead what happens is your body releases insulin. So however long, so let's say in the morning you have, give me some breakfast. Does anybody eat breakfast this morning?
Bowl of cereal.
Bowl of cereal, perfect. I love the example.
Oatmeal cereal.
Oh,
Just toast.
you look like you're going to be guilty of something. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Muffin, perfect. Okay, so cereal, toast, muffin. This is going to be a great example. Okay, so what happens is you get, say, 45 minutes, an hour down, and you're still feeling great. And then all of a sudden, in half that amount of time, 30 minutes later, you're like, and you kind of hit like that wall. So what happens is, however long it takes insulin to spike, it takes half the amount of time for it to drop. So if it takes an hour and a half to get to its highest point, 45 minutes later is when it's going to be at its lowest point. If it's something more dense, say like a sweet potato or something, it takes 2 hours to spike, an hour later it's going to hit the crash, okay? That's almost exact, but everybody's body process is different because our pancreases are all going to release different amounts of insulin and the sensitivity will be different. When we get to here, how do we feel?
Tired.
I like that, you know, what else? Tired?
Hungry.
Hungry? I can go fast in this one. Irritable, grouchy, bitchy, moody, cranky. BS. We start filling in other adjectives with that. So we don't feel good there. When we get to that point and our blood sugar is low, what do we want to do?
Eat.
Or
Sleep.
eat or sleep, okay? So in that sense, what do carbohydrates do for your body? We're going to see if you guys can reverse engineer that. So if eat and sleep, if it makes you hungry and sleepy when you eat carbs, or when you're out of carbs, what do carbs do when you eat them?
They make you
Gives
happy.
you energy.
They make you happy?
Energy.
They give you energy. So carbohydrates, 2 purposes from now on when you're eating them for the rest of your life. Think, do I need to be happy? Or do I need energy for what I'm about to do? Okay? Because they're your energy source, all right? So when we're getting into this, when we talk about food and fuel, how I like to look at it is this. Everybody here, I'm assuming at this point in your lives, have started a fire, correct? Whether it's in a fireplace, a bonfire, or something. Cool.
Yeah.
So you can't just take a log and light it with a lighter, correct? Why?
It's not going to start.
Why?
It needs something to get it going.
I like it. And what is that something? What do we use to get a fire started?
I used to roll paper and then stick a match on it.
I love it. What else can we use besides paper? Gasoline. I love it. What else can we use besides gasoline?
Out in the woods. I didn't have gasoline.
Sticks, paper, anything. So that is like going to be your simple, quick fuel. Now, can you fuel or heat up a house with just paper, sticks, and gasoline?
No.
Oh, yes, you can. Now we know the one in the group. You stayed quiet on the BS, but now we found out she's a pyrotechnician. So when you look at that, carbs aren't sustainable for long term, but the log can't get hot enough on its own. You need the 2 of them together. But the way it works best is when you're going to need energy. So you wake up in the morning, you need to be active for a couple hours. That's where you have your bowl of cereal or whatever the other things are. But some sort of protein source, and it does not have to be a lot. Whether it's an egg, it's a Greek yogurt, a cottage cheese, you fill it in. Canadian bacon, she eats Canadian bacon and eggs every day pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit. I
A
really
total creature of habit. So it can be any source, but so along with the oatmeal, along with the
toast,
along with the
Bowl of
muffin,
cereal.
all of those, you just have a little protein source with it. So what happens at that point, where carbohydrates knock down, the blood sugar drops quick, the meat, the egg, the Greek yogurt, or whatever it is going to delay this response. So instead of having a spike of the mountain, you have more of a slope. Well, what happens when we get to this point right here? We eat. This is lunch. And we do the same thing. And we slope up and we slope down. What's here? Dinner. If you don't want those slopes even as much as that, then what do we put in between breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Snacks. So that's where we start to look at it, okay? So what you're looking at in this sense is fats are going to be the last part of the equation. So fats I equate as when you spray that fire down at the end of the night, it's a wet log, and then you wake up the next morning, you're like, I swear I got that fire out. Like I sprayed it all down, there's no log left because it kept simmering very slow or smoldering through the whole night and burn. That's a fat. Fat takes 8 to 10 hours to digest through your body. Protein is between 2 to 4 hours to digest in your body. Carbs are 30 seconds to sometimes 2 hours. So it's all different, okay? And where you get the difference in your carbohydrates is the source. Everybody says avoid carbohydrates, but is a sweet potato and table sugar the same thing? No. Is table sugar and fruit the same thing?
No.
Well, why don't people eat fruit?
I do.
It's good to sugar. It's good sugar, okay? So that's the one thing you want to look at is where's your source coming from? Kind of think about that. If it's a root, like a sweet potato or something like that, like that's going to take a long time to break down. A fruit is going to be a little bit quicker. Something that's like a fruit juice or something with just straight sugar is instant. Lighter fluid, paper and sticks, and like more dense sticks, okay? So you start looking at your carbohydrate source and then you mix it with the log, which is going to be your protein. If you know you're not going to eat for a long period of time, that's where you throw your fats in, okay? A potato and chicken is not going to hold you as long as a potato and a steak. There's fat. It lasts longer. It takes longer to break down in the body. If you know that you're going to go hours and hours and hours, you throw just a little bit of fat in there. So whether it's just a little bit with your salad dressing, a little bit of cheese, an avocado, almonds, it's all up to your personal preference, but you just fluff it up with just a little bit of extra fat. And that's it. Because the more you can avoid this, the less cravings you have, the less emotional and reaction like what we talked about before, and the more proactive your approach is to eating. Your body is never going to crave a chicken breast when you get here. What does your body crave? The bad stuff, all right? No one's ever been like, oh my God, I'm so starving, hungry, I have no energy, I'm moody. Let me have an egg white. Doesn't matter. At least yet. So that's where you gotta be realistic. And that's where people on a diet, they're like, well, I'll just have another salad. No, you're gonna hate yourself in an hour, you know? So you have to make sure you're being realistic. So that's the next page. That's perfect, seven. Realistic expectations. You know, if you're putting in, trick on this, if you are putting in all healthy food, you should expect better results. If you're eating all healthy food and you're still having a cheat meal here and there throughout the week, you should expect some pretty good results. But you can't expect the amazing results by doing semi-good eating. So to me, I would rather have semi-good eating my entire life so I can enjoy everything that has been created for us, and the long and steady results, because you're going to keep that off a lot longer, okay? So again, it comes down a little bit more proactive than being reactive. Yeah, let's go cheat meals if you fall off track. Yeah, so basically this is where we go with this. So the whole idea is like, what's a flu shot? What are they doing or giving you when you get a flu shot?
Preventive.
Preventive, but what are they actually putting in you?
The virus.
The virus, okay? They've kind of populated of what seems to be the most concentrated virus for that year. They give you a small dose of it so your body builds immunity. But what happens again is people will go forever without having their favorite sugar treat, or without having their beer that they enjoy, or without having however, and then they eat it again, and all of a sudden they blow up, or they get bloated, or they have diarrhea, or whatever the situation is, because your body has not had it. It hasn't had those enzymes required to break that stuff down. And the digestion just isn't there. So to me, like, we look at cheat meals, and that doesn't mean cheat day, or cheat weekend, or cheat month, but having those things that you crave and enjoy like once a week, and it becomes almost like your immunity to keep you happy, because we talk carbs make you happy, but then also to keep you on track the rest of Monday through Friday, or whatever it is that you are going to put your cheat meal in throughout the week, okay? So here's the way I look at it is, the better you are throughout the week, maybe have one Saturday and have something Sunday. As far as what that is, we can talk those things in a second. But say you had, you know, a mess up here on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then you had something bad on a Thursday or something, but it wasn't like your one treat that you really crave, and you still want to have it on a Saturday night, that's great. There's no problem with that. But also don't expect on Monday morning you're going to be down 5 pounds from the previous week. You might be the same, you might be down a half a pound, you might be up a pound. So it all is going to vary on what you do, and what you put in is obviously what you get out. Like, that's no surprise to anybody, I don't think, in this room at that point. As far as what is a cheat meal, what is everybody's favorite food? Let's go ahead and like name some different things. But what do you guys like?
Pizza.
Pizza, I love it. Not off limits. Good. What else?
French fries, Chick-fil-A.
I love it. And you can eat French fries, right?
No, not all French fries.
Really? Okay, that's good to know. So it might be French fries, it might be pizza. Yeah, let's put it this way. Let's say it's like burgers and fries. For some people, they can still eat that once a week and still lose weight. If you notice that after a couple weeks, like you're not seeing a change, maybe you take away half the bun and you do half the fries. Do that for a week or two on your cheat day or cheat meal, whatever you're doing, and see where the results take you. But again, each person's going to respond differently. With the pizza, you're a 3-slice person on the weekends and you're not quite seeing the results, try 2 slices next week, or cut one of that 3rd slice in half and see where it takes you. But again, it's those small changes done over 52 weeks that equal the biggest results, not just starving yourself and not eating pizza for 2 weeks. Because on the 3rd week, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. All right, so it's giving yourself a little bit of that throughout the week. So now how do you control that so it doesn't turn into just one meal and that turns into just a rebound of guilt and all those things? How I recommend doing that is you have either a post-it up on your fridge or on your calendar that as you crave something throughout the week, so if it's a Butterfinger, you go and you write Butterfinger there. And so every time throughout the week when you go to grab something maybe bad, you see that word Butterfinger in there and you're like, Butterfinger or this? Okay, I'll wait for the Butterfinger, and you grab a better choice, and you head right back out and carry on with your day. All right, so that's the one where you can control it, is you start picking the lesser of evils. Don't blow it on something you really don't like when you really have like this prize and destination you're looking forward to at the end of the weekend. So you'll hear most, are you waiting to butt it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I can't see it.
Well, no, and I wanted to say for us too, I mean, I'm literally in this attire 99% of the time, so we try to make our cheat meals like date night, like I get to get dressed up and not wear sneakers, or same thing, or it could be a girls' night or a game night or something, especially if you have something to look forward to of not falling off track of like, no, this isn't worth it, like I'm going to wait for, you know, this or XYZ, or if it's a golfing day and you want to have french fries, burgers, and beers at the end of it, you know, it's whatever is in your lifestyle, but for us, that's it. Like, we like to try new restaurants all the time, so that's our thing is, you know, we try to find a new restaurant, we get dressed up, we get our gym clothes, and it's a good time.
Yeah.
And it keeps me, on track.
Yeah, and so many people, like, especially if you listen to like somebody who talks nutrition or personal trainers or whatever, like, you always gotta be perfect and no cheat meals, and that's kind of just ridiculous. It's not, again, realistic expectations. If you love pizza, like, it doesn't matter what I say or how good or how much energy I have, you're not going to listen to it for very long. Like the cravings, again, what we're brought up with in our comforts, there's a reason why it makes us feel comfortable. But it's also those same things when we eat in abundance that makes us feel uncomfortable and also guilty and depressed. So food, you'll never necessarily hear as being like your reward, and people say that you shouldn't look at it that way. But to me, it's the deadline. Like, everybody needs a deadline. As soon as we leave here, we're headed up to Atlanta to go with my brother. We're actually gonna pick up our nephew and he's gonna be back with us for next week and stuff. But it's like, we got so much done this morning before 10 o'clock because we had a deadline. If we didn't have that deadline, I mean, we would have putts around the house, an extra cup of coffee. But when you have a deadline, it holds you to something. It's like that personal agreement with yourself. And whether or not the person next to you knows if you made a mistake, like, one person does. So when you start to compound those mistakes, you feel guilty about it. Where in this way, this is your way of like, all right, I'm going to make it to Saturday. I'm going to prove to myself that I can. If you get to Wednesday and there's a function here, or there's a dinner or something that you want to do, and you're like, I really want that, then you just trade it for Saturday night and you don't have the other thing. Does that make sense? So it's choosing your lesser of evils when it comes to that stuff. All right? It says, how do you find the right program that's for you? It really comes into just trying stuff, and you have to be consistent. So my biggest thing is I would never try to put yourself in a box. You don't need to be low fat, you don't need to be low carb. Even if you have high cholesterol, you don't need to be zero dietary cholesterol, because every joint in your body needs that to function and be smooth. So it's all about finding balance. Find that one thing you do wrong and try and just tweak it or change it just a little bit. All right, let's circle that. That's a lot of information at once. Let's make some notes if we need to, and then we'll jump to the next two topics.
What about popcorn, Cheerios, and Triscuits?
Same thing. So like if you're a Cheerios person, like find the best time. So if
I need to hang out with you. Pizza, popcorn, Cheerios, you are my people. This is it.
And I'll hang out with the pirate over here. But so those are things, again, like, so if you think of carbs as your energy source, to me, like, so we have a woman, Leslie, like, she loves having her popcorn every day. Like, she gets home, puts the bag in the microwave, like, that's her thing every day after work. But now she eats dinner, and then she takes her dog for a walk after dinner. So she's burning off that popcorn. It's not like she's done all her activity for the day and then sits down in front of the TV at 9 p.m. and eating a bowl of Cheerios or popping the popcorn then. That's where you want to try and find less carbohydrate-based snacks and more put those earlier in the day when you're more active.
What I did to get myself off that stuff, which I have to be careful anyway, gluten-free, I switched to nuts.
Yeah.
And I would get a tiny little handful of salted nuts, and that helped. I don't know.
She has the pre-cut, like, cheese slices in the fridge. I mean, those are just pop one or two of those. Those are always an easy choice. You know, fats are going to be the things that break down slowest. So if you don't want late night cravings, throw fat into your dinner. One of the best things you can do.
Just before, I guess how we phrase it is just before activity, or again, the last thing you want to do, like he said, is like if you know you're done for the evening and sitting down, probably not when you want to have your Triscuits. That's when you really want to have them. But again, if you're about to go like before grocery shopping or going shopping before any activity, that's when you have your Triscuits or your bowl, or the bowl of cereal in the morning is perfect because you know you're going to be active. It's just the biggest thing I would say is you just want to stay away from those snacks when you know you're just going to be a couch potato.
Yeah. It's not on the nose. I just said before I forget this. Two things. Like if you crave salty stuff at night, it means you're not having enough salt through the day. Like your body's smart and knows it has a quota to be.
Yeah.
And if you're not,
yeah,
if you're craving like sweets at night, it's probably because you tried to cut your carbs out during the day. So make sure you put those carbs in, because if not, you're going to crave them at the end of the day. So that's why it's like You don't want to avoid everything completely. Yawning is a perfect, I love that you did it. No, it's cool. Look at where we are. We're an hour and a half after you guys started eating. Like, this is the exact time, guys. This is why we try and finish these things up quick before you pass out on us. So, but it is. You look at it, and it's clockwork, guys. As much as people want to be like, oh, no, it is. It's everybody. Like, it's the way your body processes stuff. So it's just how it goes. Yes?
Talk about sodium.
Sodium, perfect. I love that. So there's kind of a misconception of, oh, we have to eat low sodium, and like doctors are so in this kick of like everything has to be low sodium, but when you go low sodium, what happens to your body? Does anybody have muscle spasms?
Yeah.
Cramps in the back of your legs and calves?
Yeah.
All right, let's put it this way. I hate bringing up such so sad at such a positive time, but if you ever had to bring an animal to get euthanized, what is it? It's an overdose of potassium. Potassium pushes sodium out of your body. It causes a total body spasm, and that's basically what happens. So when we're taking sodium out of our body, we're constantly in like a cramping and balancing state of trying to balance potassium and sodium. If you go back all the way to chemistry, there's a sodium-potassium pump in our body that's constantly trying to regulate. If you're never putting salt back in, it's not regulating anything except for just ramping up more potassium. So you need to have a little bit of it. So if you're somebody who puts no sodium in your diet all throughout the day, personal preference, again, I cannot treat, prevent, cure, or diagnose any disease, but I would drink a little shot of pickle juice before bed every single night, get a little bit of sodium,
Pickle juice
and it'll eliminate all your
We have
worries.
so many clients who drink pickle juice at night, especially too if you're out golfing and you're emitting a lot of sweat too,
Yeah,
and you need to replace that sodium.
Yeah, if you are active in any way, if you sweat a little bit, like I sweat just standing up here, like if you sweat any little bit, like you're excreting sodium in a higher concentration than you're excreting water. So where people think they're getting dehydrated, no, if anything, you're depleting your sodium, and that's what you're actually doing. So you need to replenish sodium, especially if you sweat, but just throughout the day, like, there should be a little bit. As far as salt, the pink Himalayan sea salt is kind of like the buzz of today, but it really is true. Like, iodized salt is actually great for your thyroid, and then the pink Himalayan is supposed to be just a little bit higher concentration. But if you have a thyroid issue, if you have any type of thing along those lines, like that helps even more with that. So I just wouldn't avoid salt, especially if you're active. I mean, it's an essential little mineral for a reason. It's not only if you want to or if your doctor says it's okay. I mean, it's an essential mineral in the body. Good question, that's awesome. Anything else on food? All right, exercise we kind of talked about a little bit. I left the same notes that we left for the clerk of courts last year. And so what we put on there is every time they got up to go to the bathroom, when they got back to their desk, well, they had a few things. On their way to the bathroom, they had to say hi to another fellow employee, which made the interaction and community environment a little better. They had to do their forward circles, arm circles, then in their chairs. Was your foot on there? No. Oh, I saw your foot like pull out. They had to march in their chair. They had their forward arm circles or backward arm circles, and I think it's 10 stand up and sit down.
Yeah.
Imagine if you did that every time you peed all throughout the day.
Oh my God.
Would you ever need to go to the gym?
No.
Never.
And it's a simple.
Never. Yeah, it's simple. So what you start doing is you start tying your healthy habits that you want to incorporate with the things that are already happening throughout the day. So it could be every time you brush your teeth, so morning and night, you sit to the toilet, stand back up 10 times. It could be that every time before you get into the shower is when you do your low back stretches if you have a tight back. But whatever it is that you're trying to improve upon your life, so on page 1, we put 3 things that next year would equal a healthy success. What are those 3 things, and how can you tie that to something you already do throughout the day? So for our clients, the ones that are having trouble making it to the gym or making it to a workout, as that morning cup of coffee is brewing, get on the ground real quick, 20 bicycle crunches or 50 bicycle crunches, a couple jumping jacks, something to get the heart going, grab your coffee and don't think about it again for the rest of the day. So it's all depending on what your current activity level is, what your goals and expectations are, and then you have to fill in the gap in between with actual activity, okay? So that's where setting up those 3 things on that page 1, what are those things? Where do we want to get to, and then what's those things in between?